Are you guys going to the forum on Thursday? I think I said. So, Celestina and Sean, if you could just say hello or hi, so we know we can hear you.
Hello.
Hello.
Oh, that was Celestina and Sean. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, we can. Sweet.
All right, sounds good. Ooh. I'm now gonna call this meeting to order. Is everyone muted? And your volume is off. Okay, I think we're good now. So welcome everybody to our first in-person Student Senate meeting. It's really weird to see everybody in the same room and also to see everyone in rows. We're usually in a circle, but these are fun times and we're doing fun things with them. So thank you everybody for being 6 feet apart. We're looking forward to this. And yeah, it's just really nice to see everybody today. As you know, we're gonna have some time where President Leroy is gonna come. He's gonna give us some advice. And then we're also gonna have a discussion about how to best use the Sarah Visser money for the big capital project. And yeah, let's kick things off. So we now have a devotional and prayer from Theo.
The testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance work so that you may be mature and complete. Do I start over? So yeah, with that in mind, I will proceed to open us in prayer. Dear God, thank you so much for this awesome Senate full of so many amazing people. And I thank you that you've given us the authority and the power to honestly create a lot of positive changes on campus. And I pray that you would give us wisdom during this time to show us how exactly you want us to do that so that we can show your love and your grace in transforming Calvin's campus for the renewal of all things. In your name we pray, amen.
For that, Theo. Next, we're going to move on to roll call from VP SEN.
So I'll stop sharing my screen and, just the usual. If you hear your name, kindly respond present so I know you're here. So. President Marishima. Here. VP ASEAN, present. VP Rob. Present. VP Teed. VP Nyako. Team Leader Konis.
Present.
Team Leader Konis.
Present.
Oh my goodness, mine is not here. Actually. Yep, sorry, my volume was off, so.
Present.
Yep. Team Leader Rai.
Present.
Team Leader Solomon.
Present.
Senator Champon. Excused, absent. Senator David.
Present.
Senator Debu. Senator De Martinez Ferrero. Senator Ibeku.
Present.
Senator Harris. Senator Hunake. Senator Lecters. Senator Nyano. Senator Pennin. Senator Perumal.
Present.
Senator Schmitz. Senator Sila. Senator Young. Advisor Britton. Sweet.
All right,
So-
thank you, everybody. Now, just turn everyone, thank you. We're now going to move on to the approval of the minutes from last week. So we are going to do this by an in-person hand vote, also virtual for all of you online. So if you oppose the approval of minutes from last week, please raise your hand. Or any questions, Theo?
Either instruction when we were talking in our transcription project, or the transcription was contained a little bit of inaccuracy. It said that before the campus spirit issue happened, there was a 40 to 45% billing outrage, but accurately it was more of a 55 to 60%. So if you could change that, that would be significant.
Thank you for the correction.
Perfect, thank you for the change. But although I'll point out that your team leader did say 40 to 50%, which is not recorded video, but yeah. We'll see to it.
Thank you. So now for the vote, raise your hand if you are opposed to the approval of the minutes. Beautiful, the minutes have passed. And next, we're going to move on to an update on governance committees from Sarah Bell here, but is she doing it at 4:50?
Yeah, 450.
Okay, so now we're actually going to move on to the Black Lives Matter bid from Isaac. Isaac, you good to present now? Okay, and how much time did you want for this bid? Is
Yeah, like 10 minutes.
10? Okay, sounds good. So the floor is yours. You can
You can come up here if you want to.
you can like advance the slide.
Oh, okay, very cool. I'll check. Yeah, mic is on. Okay. Thank you everyone for your time. I'm so excited to see everyone here in person. This is kind of crazy, seeing most of you just on a computer for so long. So basically, our society is facing a couple big problems, one of which is COVID, obviously. Everybody's wearing a mask in here and we're socially distant and everything. And another issue that not only Calvin's community, not only the community of Grand Rapids, but the entire community of our country and of the world is facing issues of racial discrimination, of police brutality, and of general injustice. So I think Senate is well positioned as a representative of the student body to address something like this in the form of an event of some sort. So what would the purpose of this event be? This project would have three goals: to promote activism, to stand up for the marginalized, and to stand in unity as a Christian community of Calvin University. With a project like this, there would be lots of logistics. So we got to ask the question, what are the logistics? There would be many ways to facilitate this project. I've thought about doing some sort of walkout, more of a traditional protest, or something like a day of activism. And this is just a bid, so I was kind of hoping to get an idea from Senate if this is something that we wanted to do. And then after, if we approve this bid, I would come back with more details later. What are the costs? So this would be a low-cost project. The main cost of this project, as far as I can tell, would be promotional costs. And many of those would be offset because we have Instagram and social media and those sort of things that we can get the word out on. So my proposal in essence is I'm asking for Senate to approve this idea. If the Senate votes yes, I will bring a more substantive proposal to Senate next week.
Thank you, Isaac.
Yes.
So now we're going to move into breakout rooms. We are, yeah, maybe two. Oh, thank you. Yeah, great. So the people in here are just going to talk to the people around them, and the people online are going to go into their own group. So I will give us until 4:47, and that's when I'll call us back. So just group up and talk to the people around you. Feel free to ask Isaac questions if you have any.
Yeah, so sorry, so the breakout room, if you're in person, choose the in-person room, and if you're online, choose the online room, so we can break out successfully. But yeah.
Turn off the volume, turn off the volume and mute yourself, and they can. All right, 30 more seconds. Yes, we're gonna do that as soon as our online people come back into this room. Okay, I'm not seeing. Emmanuel, are they coming back? Okay. I guess we can just start with any questions. Did anybody have questions for Isaac? Brandon, I see a question there.
So yeah, I would reach out to them in an attempt to make it seem bipartisan. Also, I've thought about I couldn't think of a better name for the proposal, but Black Lives Matter, unfortunately, has become more of a controversial term in politics. So I would definitely be open to the discussion of maybe changing up some of the terminology. But ultimately, the end goal as I see it is to stand up for the marginalized community in a unified way. And I think there are ways to do that, like bring people from all sides and from all different walks of life. And I think obviously nonviolence is really important. So it would be a nonviolent protest, obviously. But yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah, and to follow up, then, I would say, so you mentioned protests.
Yes.
Just walking.
Yep.
How would we, because I like the idea of with COVID, how would we be able to do that, and how would we be able to accommodate in terms
Yes.
of COVID?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would obviously reach out to the COVID response team. As of right now, I kind of want Senate to approve this idea in essence. And I don't have a full specific plan as of now, but obviously we would want to make it COVID safe. And there are ways to do that through social distancing. We can make it COVID safe, and especially if we had advice from the COVID response team.
Natalie, and then Mayhem, and then Justice, and then Jesse.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So my question is, so you have said that your goal is to create awareness and have it be bipartisan and everything. But then, like, I wonder what is the actual goal? Is it like
Yes.
a goal to helping faculty to change something? Is it a goal to students to do something exactly? So, like, what is the specific tangible goal like that you want to reach by the end of this?
Yeah. So I think in this time, in this time of COVID and in this time of an election season and a politically active time, I think it's really important for students to have ways to participate in activism and to make their voices heard. So that would be just giving students that opportunity to make their voices heard as one voice in the form of some event. So that would be one of the goals as I would see it. And then obviously Calvin is a Christian institution with like justice in its motto. So I think the goal would be to live up to that, live up to those founding principles, to act justly, to think deeply, and to live wholeheartedly. And I think we can act justly in a way. I think if we did something like this, we would be fulfilling that motto. Does that answer your question?
Not entirely, but it's
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna have to table this because we have another guest that will be speaking at 4:50. So is there a second to table this for later in the meeting? Second. All right, so this discussion is now tabled. I still have. Who is in the waiting room? So
Yes.
yeah. Yes. Okay.
All right, so Sarah sits on the off-campus committee, right, Omari? And she's here to give us an update so far. So I'm gonna let her in real quick.
All right, Sarah, welcome to our Student Senate meeting. Do you need Emmanuel to share his screen? Or are you just gonna talk?
I can just talk. I have a Word doc typed out if you guys want me to send it to you.
Sorry, you said you have a presentation or not?
No, I don't.
Okay, all good. You can just talk.
Okay.
Floor is
I have a Word document if you want me to email it out afterwards. Okay. So I just have 3 main points because we've only had 1 meeting. So I'm just going to talk about where the programs stand currently, the possible program changes in the future, and then just some ongoing discussions we're going to have. So currently all international semester programs are canceled, but the semester in DC and the semester in Chicago are still going to be happening in the spring. And then certain interims are going to be happening still. I know the Grand Canyon one is for sure. And then the other ones are just depending if like they're more wilderness and outdoors and not as much like in a city with other people. And then if a program is going to be happening, they have to submit detailed steps about the precautions they're taking with COVID, and then what they would do in all the different circumstances that could arise, like if people are exposed or if someone gets it. And then for this year, the May terms are still not canceled. A lot of it is based on if there's going to be a vaccine that comes out and how effective it is, and if you're going to need boosters for it and how accessible it will be. So they're just kind of playing that all by ear, but are still planning on it. And then they're also having to keep in count the risk in other countries where students could be traveling. And there is talk that the France semester may not run until the fall of 2022. I don't know exactly why, but I think it might be professor related that they just don't want to plan it since you have to plan everything a year in advance. So then moving on into the possible program changes. So there's a lot of talk of just moving programs to running every other year. For example, England, Peru, and Spain are every year, but they're very expensive because when you go, you pay your tuition to Kelvin, but then that money goes to the university you'll be studying at. So for like the 25 students that go to England, Peru, and Spain, Kelvin's not getting those 75 students tuition. And then also it's cost related because the more students that go, it's cheaper, but then the general fund for like excursions and everything is smaller. So Kelvin wants to move down to going to maybe smaller groups of people going abroad. So instead of like 23 to 25, do like 15 to 18, but then make the program more expensive per student, but it would have more money in the general fund to go do other things. But there's worry that if they do this, it could deter students just because off-campus programs draw a lot of people in. And if it increases, a lot of people might not want to pay the extra money for it. And then another change that they made last year, but is like completely set in stone now, is the semester in New York is no longer running, and it's now going to be a semester in Liverpool. So they're still going to England. It's just a different city, different school, and the school is more closely related to Kelvin. I believe I was in York last year and we went to visit it, and it reminded me a lot of Kelvin. So they're just trying to switch to more of a Christian university. And then for our ongoing discussions, so Cynthia Slaughter is a professor at Penn, but she's been in charge of office programs now for a few years. She was told it was a temporary position before they could, one thing led to another, and she's still doing it. But because of COVID, it's not a full-time position right now, so she's back to teaching. But she really wants to find someone to fill the role of the off-campus program director just so she can teach full-time again. But they're trying to figure out when to start advertising the position because there's really no hours for it right now. And with COVID, they don't know how long it will be till they need a full-time person in that position. So there's a lot of talk on like, when should we start advertising it to the public, or should it just be like find someone from Kelvin to fill in? And then yeah, it's just going to be hard because we don't know how long it's going to take to get programs running again. And then we have a meeting scheduled to discuss the changes to off-campus programs with the new academic calendar and changes to the core curriculum. Because with the change of the calendar, it can be hard to make sure like the same semesters fit in the schedule. And then with moving interims to seeing what the demand is for them, and certain interims could be a lot harder to do in a May term instead of January. And then with the core curriculum, we're just trying to like figure out, since when you go abroad, it's a lot of core classes that you take. And if someone were to wait longer, like how far in advance are they going to have to plan this out to fit it in their schedule so they can save core to take? And then lastly, we are trying to schedule a meeting for a champion to discuss more about COVID and the vaccine and the risks of sending people once there is the vaccine. Because one of the worries is if we send students that have the vaccine to Peru and they stay with their host families and the host families aren't vaccinated and the vaccine isn't super effective, could our students pass it on to some of the families there that are lower income and don't have as easy access to healthcare? So there's just a lot of talk on like, how long are we going to have to wait for the vaccine to come out? And then even once it's out, what are going to be the necessary precautions that are going to have to take to keep not only our students safe, but host families? And then also assessing the risk in other countries, which is hard since everything's changing right now a lot. So that's basically all we've talked about. A lot of it is just trying to figure out how to deal with COVID right now.
All right, thank you, Sarah. Are there any questions? Okay, it does not look like there are any questions. So if they have questions, feel free to, I'll just pass along your email and senators can send you their questions. But thank you so much, Sarah, for coming and giving us an update about your governance committee. And thank you for serving on a governance committee as well.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Yeah, you too. Bye. Okay, awesome. And President Leroy, welcome. Oh. that is me, my voice. You can just sit right Yeah. Well, yeah, welcome and just our student senate meeting. What is going to happen right now, we're just going to do some introductions, and then President Leroy, if you don't mind talking a little bit about just like efficiency and like teamwork, if that's cool. And then we are going to have more of like a discussion time where senators will talk about like some projects that they are considering, and we just love to have you be part of that discussion. And then after that, if we have time, we will do some Q&A, but we will be ending this at 5:40 because there's a class that happens in this room at 6. So that's just some background. But yeah, can we just have everybody go around and just like say their names one more time? I will start. I'm Claire, and then we'll go that way, kind of just loop around and then come up that way.
Isaac Seiler.
Theo Paramore.
AJP.
Isaac Brown. All right. Michael Leroy.
Would it be helpful for you actually if we started with just the discussion on the project, or would you want to?
Well, you know, I could make general comments, but they might not be the general comments that are very helpful. So knowing what the project is would be very helpful and interesting to me too. So.
Yeah, honestly, okay, let's just jump into the discussion, and Isaac is going to lead that. So.
All right, so should I share my screen here?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yep.
Perfect, thank you very much.
The Zoom master.
Yes, please.
A lot of meetings where we could use you.
You should be able to share screen now.
Perfect. All right, so here are some tentative ideas for this project. This is in reference to the big fiscal project that we partnered with Sarah Visser to do each year. Last year it was the fire pit. So we have $5,000 with which to address this project. So we're going to go through a few considerations that should be made, as well as a few ideas we've had, both from senators as well as from the student body themselves. And then there will also be sort of a pitch from there as well. So I think a big thing for us to consider is, given the current climate we're all in, is this project something that should be long-term, that's going to be beneficial for a long time for Calvin, or should this be in direct address of the current climate we're in with the coronavirus and the restrictions, and finding a way for students to build community and engage with one another in a safe way? Is that where we should devote our efforts, or should we devote them more to the standard, typical, long-term type of thing? And then the project that we choose, is it the best use of that 5K? Obviously, there are a million different projects. We can nickel and dime it away on different things. But that's really not what this is for. We're trying to find the best possible, try to collaborate on that and find the best possible use for this money that will affect the entire student body. So a few of the projects that we've had introduced from the student body or from senators, there are some COVID-19 specific projects, as well as some that are general and more long-term. So the first of those being recycling. Team RIE currently has that project, but it's pretty difficult. There isn't a whole lot of money in that. Calvin has basically decided that it's not in the budget for this year. And so a few considerations for this, I think, is that 5K going to do anything? Like, is that going to put a dent in this problem? Because if it's going to take $30,000 to make this feasible, then it's not a very good use of our money. But if we can make a big difference with that 5K, then even though this is not a huge physical thing that's going to last on Calvin's campus forever, it still might be a worthwhile use of the money for sustainability purposes. And then again, as I mentioned, it's not a super tangible project. So that's another consideration. So for each of these things, we're going to take a minute or two to discuss, get questions, comments about these questions and reflections. So I'll open up the floor up now. Do you think that this 5K could make a difference? President Leroy or anybody here, or JB? Justice?
Is this pertaining just to the recycling idea?
Yeah, we're going to go through each one sort of. Or Claire, do you think it'd be better if we just do that all at one time in the end?
I think it'd be nice to walk through each one.
Perfect. All right, so for recycling. Theo?
I'm kind of curious to hear from Team Bry how much of a difference they think 5K would make. Like, could we completely restart Calvin's recycling, or how effective would it be?
Okay, I can say something.
So we haven't looked into the specific logistics of how much it actually costs to bring recycling back. We kind of just based the idea of this project on the fact that there's a lot of students on campus. Based on our survey, I don't have the direct numbers in front of me, but there are a lot of students who think that Calvin can do better in their sustainability, especially during this semester specifically. So that seemed to be kind of a priority for students. So we figured that this would be a good project to look into, but like I said, I do not know the logistics of how much money it would take and if $5,000 would do anything.
Can I ask a question? Just, what is your understanding, or who did you talk to about why recycling isn't currently happening? Does anyone know?
I believe we reviewed this, and this is actually what I was looking up, is I'm pretty sure many of the recycling centers actually closed, so it wasn't really a choice. I could be wrong. And that's what I was looking up.
last I'd heard, many of them had actually closed, so it was physically impossible regardless of cost.
Yeah, so first I was spearheading that project. So I did talk with Russell Gray, the director of facilities, and he made a note to me that as far as recycling of, maybe food and stuff, like compost is not gonna happen this semester, but then we might move to recycling of office papers. But yeah, but as far as, food or compost or any other meager items, it's not gonna happen.
Yeah, was it your end? This could help in the conversation. I haven't talked about this with anyone for a while, but where I live, we recycle too, and that had to stop. So actually my wife yesterday took her recycling over to a faculty member's house and recycled it in her can. That's but my understanding about why this is, it has to do with health and safety, because we actually have people that have to sort the trash. And if you imagine somebody that's been drinking from a Coke can or whatever, and someone touches it, it could be communicable in terms of the disease. So it's been my understanding all along, it was not a financial, there probably is some cost implication, and it is also true that there are a lot of other recycling facilities in the county and the city that are shut down for similar kinds of reasons related to the danger associated with sorting. So, but there might be more recent developments in the last month or so that I don't know about, but that was my understanding to begin with. So that could help in terms of, I don't get the sense that it was a money issue completely. So
wasn't a financial issue?
No, I don't think so. I think it had very much to do with not wanting people to touch other people's saliva laden cans. So, which makes sense, right? I mean,
But even paper in our offices aren't being recycled, right? So that all those recycling bins just get dumped in the trash now.
Yeah, it's a problem with the physical labor so we actually have people here on campus that have to sort all that and make sure, because it's not always sorted well. And so now there might be more information in the last month or so, but that was my understanding. Partly it affects us too, and we hate throwing stuff in the trash too in our house. Yeah, but I don't know if that helps. And you should certainly, there might be more information that I'm not aware of. A lot of times people make the mistake of thinking that because I'm the president that I know everything that goes on, and that's not true. So.
Of course, yeah.
So then is it fair to assume everyone that $5,000 would help us because it's not a financial issue, it's more of a health and safety issue?
And Team Ryan, have you guys heard the health and safety concerns before or not really?
I mean, we haven't heard that. We consider that as a possibility, so we hope that might be the case, but we haven't looked further into it yet, so we haven't gotten to that step in the process.
And I did just do some poking around on the internet, and it looks like it would be very expensive over the course of like a semester to recycle for like 4,000 people. So I'm not sure that $5,000 would be particularly sufficient.
All right, sounds like we're in consensus. That one's not really feasible.
Well, you should check. I think before, I would be feeling comfortable if you guys ruled it out based upon my facts, which are sort of September old. So I might be wrong.
We can do a little more research.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
yeah.
Thank you very
So.
much. All right.
Did this also include the purchasing of recycling and garbage bins for outside? Was that part of this proposal, or was that a different?
Tentatively, it was part of that proposal. I think it kind of goes hand in hand with the labor kind of stuff. But it seems like we don't have enough money, and it may not be a money issue at all. All right, so am I good to move on? Anyone else have any closing thoughts? All right, so next, basement renovations. This is a project that Team Fresh has been working on. It's also something that the Freshman Council tackled last year a little bit. So we discovered that overall renovation of the basements, redoing the carpets, the lights, paint, equipment, all that kind of stuff is going to cost upwards of like $100,000 per basement. And so what Team Freshman did last year was just work with the computer room specifically. This has been introduced as a potential project for this 5K, and it probably wouldn't be able to be something that would have a direct impact on the entire student body, which I think is the main concern. So I'm going to open this one up to the floor for all of you guys as well, if you have any thoughts. Justice.
So there is a bit of a misconception with this project. It's not to renovate the whole basement of every dorm. The current project is that we're conducting surveys in each of the dorms to see what is needed the most, and trying to hit on some of the big issues in the dorms. So it's just small stuff.
Of course, yeah. Yeah.
Hey, wait, just a point where, hey, Justice, can you make sure you unmute your mic and everyone else when you are asking questions so our online friends can hear us, please?
As a member of Team Fresh, I think I can speak some about renovating computer rooms. Because right now we have 2 computer rooms in the process of renovation. My understanding is that it would take $2,000 a pop to do more computer rooms. Since that wouldn't achieve a cohesive goal, we wouldn't be able to get all the computer rooms done. It would take much more money than the Sarah Visser money. And since it would also be only 2 more, I personally don't think that this would be the best use of the money, either for the appearance of Senate actually accomplishing something with this money, or for actual effectiveness sake.
Yeah, I think that's the foremost concern about it, is just that it would have an effect on a limited amount of students, even if it would be a positive effect on those students that we could still do, given all the restrictions. Do we have any other thoughts? JB.
We could chip in $3,000 our money. That gave us $8,000 to finish 4 days. So we could chip in $3,000 to finish 4 days. With $8,000, you could do all $8,000, $5,000 from Sarah, $3,000, potentially do all.
I don't know if it's necessarily worth it because the computer rooms have a capacity of 4 right now. And if it wasn't during COVID, it might make better sense. But yes, only 4 people can be in there at a time. It's not really affecting a lot of
Yeah, that's true. Although I do think we have to consider the longevity of it, because those computer rooms will still be renovated at the times at which those restrictions are lifted. So right now, that's a good point, though. That would hinder things a little bit. Emmanuel?
Because I mean, we're just but the union wasn't built by day, and even us, we're building up to the last work last Senat's work. So in as much as we're here to do our part, we hope that we pass on to the next Senate, and like that. So with time, that's gonna affect the whole student body. But yeah, we just have to take into account that time is something that is limited, and we work according to that. So.
Yeah, thanks. It's a good thing to keep in mind. Nahum.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify. So when we're talking about these innovations project, are we talking about computer rooms, or are we talking about the surveys that are hitting into things that students want to do?
Team Fresh could speak more to that, but I think the surveys are in regard to the computer rooms. Is that true? Or just general renovations that would be helpful?
Yeah, I can do that.
Go for it.
So the survey, the intent of the survey, which I'm doing about today, is to gauge what students want in their, like, what students want to change in their dorm bases. So one of those things could be computer rooms, one of them could be, or another one could be like different paint. I don't, we haven't fully constructed the survey quite yet. But so it's not specifically computer rooms. We're just looking at it kind of starting from like a blank slate, like what do students want from Senate, from what they'd like to do to their dorm.
And the 5,000 is not accurate.
Right. It is my understanding that our proposal isn't necessarily for the 5,000 from Sarah Visser. Am I right about that, guys? The proposal, isn't specifically for this $5,000. We were just going to propose it to Senate. But this could be a way that we utilize that.
Exactly, yeah. The proposal is still in place, aside from it being a consideration for the 5K from Sarah Visser. I think that's 2 separate projects, really. Team Freshman already has that project, but we're entertaining the possibility of devoting that Sarah Visser money to that project. So as of now, it's 2 distinctive things. All right, so does anyone else have any thoughts on this? All right, President Laura, anything to add?
No,
If
not
that's fine.
specifically on that, no.
All right, sounds good. All right, so those were some of the ones that were more COVID-19 specific. Now there are a few general ones. The first being add to the lower level of Johnny's. The Fish House in Johnny's has a foosball table, a little bit of art, a bunch of tables and stuff, but there was an idea presented by a student to add arcade games, ping pong, pool tables, etc., to make it a good place for students to all hang out. That would likely not be possible until the restrictions are lifted, but it is something that we could put our money towards.
One point would be, like you said, you can't even use it right now, and if it was stuff that can be moved, it might be useful, but it shouldn't be necessarily like permanent changes, because with Commons Union in a couple of years, all that will be removed. So it wouldn't be practical to put a bunch of money into, say, redoing the wall paint or like the rug or something like that for aesthetic, because then it would just it would be destroyed in a couple of years, a few years, however.
If I'm not mistaken, there already are arcade games down there. And Johnny's. Also, we have ping pong tables in the basement, just that give just to make everything out in that space. But we are like,
Yeah, it is something that's already underway. I think the idea is just to sort of broaden the scope of that use of the Fish House and make it more centrally towards that. JB?
This was a project 2.5 years ago by Senate, and Senate got a company named 616 to bring in 6 games for free. So they earned 100% of the revenue, but there was no cost to the institution other than electrical. But after 2 years, and some of that was COVID, obviously, they removed the machines because they just weren't being used. Partly because they're coin operated and not a lot of students bring coins, and so it just wasn't a great use of the space to have arcade games.
Gotcha. All right. And then the next project is for Christmas or winter decorations. It's pretty well regarded. The campus is really gorgeous in the fall and the summer. There's green grass and beautiful trees and all that stuff, but it does get a little gray and drab, and the seasonal affective disorder starts to hit. And a student has proposed that we could add decoration and spend $5K using that for lights, wreaths, Christmas trees, as well as the manpower necessary to put all that up with that $5K to just make campus prettier. All right, so does anyone have any thoughts on this? Isaac?
I do think they're in a year, I think it's a pretty good idea. We're going back before Thanksgiving, so I think I don't think we would be fully capitalizing on our money if we put, let's say we put Christmas decorations up 2 weeks from now. We'd only get to for not very long. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Another point would be storage. Like, where are we going to keep them? If we want it to last year after year, then they'll have to have a proper storage space, and we might pay for the manpower to put them up this year, but then that will be something each year that we would have to put money into theoretically, unless Calvin took it up.
Yeah, there would be a recurring cost of the labor to install all that stuff, which is certainly something to consider. Brandon?
So I did mention how, especially in COVID, we're going back in. So I did mention about how, like, these times, like, COVID, it's harder because, why would we want to use it if we're going back? If we're going back after Thanksgiving, I just wanted to question. I had a question about what would it look like during
What would the project look like that we do use the service for Christmas?
Yeah.
I don't think it looked that different. Most likely, I think we'd put up lights and wreaths and maybe a big Christmas tree on Commons lawn or something like that to just make it prettier. I don't think it's really affected all that much by the coronavirus because it's not really like an activity or a hangout place or an event. It's more of aesthetic renovations. Justice?
You talked about, I can't remember the name of it, but the seasonal disorder. And I think that really hits right when we come back, like post-Christmas. So I think that even though maybe it's not Christmas anymore, we could still put up trees and wreaths and stuff like that to encourage that spirit and to show a little bit of life on campus, because it really does hit in like end of January, February, and March, right when we come back.
Exactly. Yeah, that's when people start getting upset. It's February. That's technically the shortest month, but really drags on for like 15 years, and people just aren't that happy. So it's something that we would likely keep up for a long time, just to liven the spirits of people around. I saw Azuchi's hand.
Yeah, so yeah, just it's like a long-term project. But I would say one thing that we have to consider is like cost. So we spend a lot on like get this, and then after some time, definitely some of it's going to get small. Some of it's going to like break down. So then we have to like change it or maintain what we have. And also we have to consider like, let's say 5 years from now, you might need to change all of it. Like, you can't be doing that same thing for 5 years. So I just think like those are some things to like consider when you're talking about the cost of this.
Yeah, for sure. There's definitely a recurring cost of labor and maintenance and all that stuff. JB?
President will share with us the commission. He partnered with Senate on the tree, and what your thoughts are.
Yeah, well, a couple things. Actually, I give my wife Andrea a lot of credit here too. She kind of had the observation around Christmas that it was there was more that we could do, and so she we donated the cost of some lights and stuff, and now do decorate the tree and turn it on, and have cookies and that kind of thing. Usually right after Thanksgiving. So it's but this year we're recognizing that it'll be a different kind of feel around here, and it'll probably just be very few of us. So we are still wanting to do something like that if students want us to do that before Thanksgiving. It'd be kind of early, but it'd be fun. But I would say that the decorations stay pretty limited to the tree that's right out there on the Commons lawn, kind of where the crossing of the paths are. The other thing that I will say is that I hear the perspective about winter in February and January. I mean, there's a lot. My wife and I lived in Sweden for a couple of years, and it was really interesting to see how in that country where it's dark most of the time, they do a lot to decorate exterior spaces, especially, and even certain days of the week they would put out little. There would be just little buckets with candles in them, as it was snowing, and or different kinds of things in the outdoor environment to make it really appealing. And especially if it was done just certain hours, that could be cool. And you could learn. There's probably a lot more decorative insight that you could gain from just reading about it, because they do a very good job of making winter, and outdoor spaces in winter a very livable kind of experience and enjoyable. So I wouldn't claim to be the expert on that, but I just know that there's a lot that people living in northern climes, even farther north, that we learn from. So.
Yeah, so there's a lot we could do with that, Theo.
I think that if we do this project, we should definitely specify to be winter themed overall instead of just Christmas. Because it sounds like, first of all, that would liven up Christmas too, and second of all, that would make it much better when the seasonal affective disorder kicks in, like we mentioned. Well, that was it.
Yeah, true. Just Christmas might be a bit of a small scope for an entire week, a winter. Branda.
Yeah, so some of us have mentioned that, like seasonal depression comes in. That's a real thing. I would say, what about, because I like this idea, like to liven up, the campus, that's a good, especially when people have seasonal depression. But I'm just curious, are there any other ways that we could, instead of, or just maybe even include the Christmas trees or lights, but maybe like for example, President Murashima posted about like the LED lights, like, you know, like the mimic like sunlight, you know. Is there any way we could do that instead of the lights, or maybe even like do both, or in regards to like mental health? Because this does tie in with mental health.
Yeah, I think basically it is what we make of it. If we can sort of scope the project as decorative and stuff, then we can basically do what we want with the decor and with that money and doing what we think is best. Okay.
Student Senate actually partnered with the CCW a few years ago, and we did provide light boxes. So if we wanted to do more for mental health, we could definitely like use some of either Senate's money or the money from Student Life for the capital project that we're talking about right now to do that, and I think that would be a great idea. But kind of just to segue, I don't know if this discussion was done, but Bear actually and I were going to bring another idea that we would like your input on about livening up campus. Would that be a good time to?
Sounds perfect.
Okay, Bear, take it away.
Thank you. My idea was very similar to this.
Wait, you're muted.
Sorry. It's good. My idea was very similar to the C's one, only I'd like a more permanent aesthetic change. Because I remember touring Calvin 2 years ago for the first time, and I absolutely loved the campus. It was so well organized, but it was a lot of brown and green. Now, what I personally would like, and I've heard from others too, is some color, something fresh on campus. So, me and Claire were brainstorming last week about what could we do, and eventually the idea popped up to literally add some color to campus. So we thought of 3 projects that together form one big project, and I'm totally open to other ideas. But basically, the first one would be to add swings to the library lobby. And these would be like cocoon swings where people could study, and they look very cool. They'd be awesome for promotion, and they create a cozy and comfortable vibe, and it would just be a cool place to study. The second would be to add color to the walkways, and I'm thinking painting walkways in red colors. This could be very helpful to adding a little joy to everyday lives. When you walk into class, imagine walking over a lime green path, or a yellow or an orange path. It personally would make me very happy, and all students would benefit from it, whether you're a commuter or just somebody living on campus. And we could do funky designs, like the sky's the limit. And the third would be, does everybody know that side of Holt, the residence hall across from Commons, that big empty wall? Imagine we did a mural there of the city of Grand Rapids, and we could ask a student to design it, and we could do that this winter. And we could add a giant mural, and it would liven up that whole area, that big crossing. And it could be an iconic place for people to take pictures like, hey, I visited Calvin University or Grand Rapids. That's basically some ideas, but some of the ideas just, I want more color on campus. It needs to be more iconic. It needs to be Instagram worthy.
Thanks, Bear. I think that does a really great job of balancing the longevity that we're looking for while at the same time being safe and applicable for like the restrictions that we're living under. So thank you. That's a very good idea. Does anyone else have anything to add? All right, Theo Piramel.
Just adding on, I had a friend that didn't come to Calvin because her words not mine. The campus was ugly. So I really think this is an awesome idea, and I really love it.
Brandon.
I would say I really when you said about the bubble, the cocoon thing, I think, okay, actually some people might be like, oh my god, like what is this? But I think that's a very good idea, because not only does that bring, that's very artistic, because I'm a very artistic person. I think that would look very cool, because I know at U Chicago they have like a lot of like it's very I've been to the campus, it's beautiful, like everything is artistic, you know, like there's like a lot of like, you know, like one side is, you know, like you said, like a mural of like Chicago, downtown Chicago, and there's like a lot of things that like make the campus like not bleak, you know. And I do agree that although Calvin's good artistic wise, as an artistic person, it's bleak. And so I think that your idea with like having like study, especially when you said study, I think that was a good idea, because, you know, especially during times of winter, you know, maybe we could even add like heating or whatever, like outside. So I think that's a really good idea. So I support this.
All right, thank you, Brandon. Omari?
Yeah, thank you. I must say I really like the idea, and what I really appreciate about it is the tangibility of it. Clearly it has a lot of moving parts, and I'm curious to know, is this something you are proposing to Senate as a bid, as a proposal, or is it contesting for the 5K from Sarah Bissell?
It's usually for the 5K of Sarah Visser because it's mostly it's something that'll last, but it is mostly aesthetic.
Okay.
So we're not talking about 30 or 40,000. I think 5,000 will cover it a long way, especially if we ask a student artist to develop a mural and incorporate student ideas into the design. And I mean, it's literally how far will the 5K go?
Justice?
Now, there's also going to be repair costs. Michigan winters are hard and paint chips easily. Is that kind of calculated into your plan at all?
At this moment, I haven't specifically looked at like exact finances, like how much should we reserve for future reparations. But I feel like we could set aside a small part of that, or it's part of maintenance. It'll become part of the calendar.
Yeah, I think a lot of the logistics are sort of up in the air. This is like a brainstorming session for what to use this 5K for.
I was just looking at, there is also a very specific thing called literally like floor paint. So especially for the ones like the mural, if it's, I don't know how much of a bridge is over like that edge, but it would probably last a decent amount if it was done with proper paints. Yeah. I mean, if you look at the one underneath the whatchamacallit, the underpass, that has lasted just fine. So that wouldn't need a whole lot of upkeep. I think you'd have to be strategic though for the like floor paint for like that very smooth thing going from the chapel pretty much all the way straight through the middle of campus is very smooth. And I think if you did it, it would last a good number of years if you used the proper paint.
I think so too. And it would have to be, of course, like well designed and pass a series of and stuff. Yeah, but there's big potential.
All right, guys, I think we're sort of running out of time. We gotta move things along. Am I right about that? Yeah, so.
Yeah, so, I don't know, I guess for me, Roy, if you had any like, advice for our team, just like, given those projects and, yeah, if you don't have any like advice for our team or like anything you like want.
No, I do. And mainly I wanted to try to understand where you feel like things are slowing down, or, you know, in other words, to say you have an interest in understanding how to be more efficient suggests that something is not efficient. And so, you know, it's like, is it happening in the smaller work groups or is it happening at this level? You know, just some of those kind of things I'm curious about.
Yeah, I guess it's from the pandemic and just learning what our work are and how to activate and to get a lot of that started and finished and so that's something that like overall we've all been trying to overcome during the pandemic. But if you had any like I guess advice for just like these projects or with like priorities in general, we would love your input and Isaac, you can add something.
Yeah, I think also, like I said, there's always a lot of turnover, people doing it for a year and then new people come in. And I think that it's difficult to get sort of accustomed to the role that we take on. So any insight on that as well would be appreciated.
Yeah, no, I understand that. Well, maybe a couple of different thoughts, and then maybe I'll pick up the last one. And I'm only looking at it because I know we have a class in here, so I could have stayed till 6. So, but we have to let class have class, right? So, I guess first thing is that it's always really important to have clear definition on what you want to try to accomplish. And so, in our leadership team and even broader within the university, one of the things that we do is we work very hard to get clear goals for the year. But I think it's reasonable to expect that this group has got to figure out what its role is and what can be done and what can't be done, and who do you have to work with to get things done. There are a lot of questions there. So to that end, one of the things we use is, and I'd be happy to share it with you, is a tool that we call a project charter. And it is a very detailed document that is made out once we have a proposed plan that takes a realistic assessment of, okay, who do you need to talk to? What kind of resources are involved? What are the real facts? For example, take the recycling example. What is the reason that recycling isn't happening and who are your sources for those facts? And you press real hard on all of those things because your ability to get clarity will influence your success. So if you have clarity and you understand things correctly, the solutions that you bring are more likely to be the right ones. If you're operating, if you have a group of 5 people and you're sitting around going, well, why, I'm not saying this didn't happen, it may well have happened, but why aren't we recycling on campus right now? Does anyone know for sure? What's the source of information? Is it the rumor mill? Is it the chimes, or is it direct conversations with the person responsible for recycling? Those kind of things. So figure out who you need to talk to and what needs to be done. But I think more commonly in groups like this or subgroups like this, where you didn't get to pick your team, and you have a team that you're working with based on being assigned, it's very important to have shared goals. In other words, to make sure that everyone on the team has bought into the direction. Not that that doesn't mean that everybody has to, think, wow, this is the thing that excites me most in life. But sometimes you're part of a team and you have to play a supporting role for the wider group's priorities. There are times or certain goals that every team has where some people are less motivated than others. But if you're part of a team and you're committed to having success, a lot of the times that means that you are, whether you're excited about it or not, you're committed to carrying it through. So what I do with our team, the cabinet team, that is 10 people, including me, is as we're trying to set a priority and we set a timeline and we do these things, is I go around the room and say, are you committed to this project? Are you all in? Are you all in on this deadline? And I go around with all 9 people, and they know they can say no, and then we talk about it some more. But if you've made a commitment to the goal, then the expectation of the whole team is that we can all hold each other accountable to that going forward. It doesn't mean that, sometimes you chart a goal or you set a goal and then you get into it and you realize, wow, we didn't map this out quite right, or a new fact comes up that we didn't realize. And that can become an occasion to reset or recalibrate that commitment, but you still can only get things done in a group if you have a shared goal. And what that means is that not only just, yeah, we want to do this, but the other thing is making sure that you are specific. If someone has something they're supposed to do by a certain time, you should all make sure that everybody understands what everyone's supposed to do by a certain time. So if I know if Claire's got something she needs to do, but for me next Tuesday, and we've set it in a common group that we're working on together, and I have something I need to get to her by Wednesday, I make sure everyone in the group knows it. She makes sure everyone in the group knows it. And then the check-ins are, okay, you said you were going to have it done by Tuesday. It's Monday. How are you doing on that? And then you could say the same thing to me about the Wednesday. But that accountability and knowing that, yep, I was there when the commitment was made, and I'm here when the check-in happens, and I'll be there when the results are there. That ends up being really quite important. And it's a great skill for you to learn in any kind of group that you work in, because learning how to have shared accountability. Most things in life are not done by individuals; they're done by teams of people and groups working together effectively. And so learning in some ways the architecture and the engineering of how to make group work happen is a key skill that you can have here. It also helps a lot of times in groups like this that are new. A forceful single personality can kind of drive the idea that everyone decides to do. But everyone else hasn't had a chance to get committed to it, then what happens is that projects fall apart, and because it's one person that was driving it, or maybe a couple of people that were driving it. And if that's the way a process is, you can pretty much guarantee that project will probably only get done because those two people did it, not because there was a team that was behind it. So, anyway, so those are some nuts and bolts kinds of things. Those are things we use on an everyday basis in our cabinet team. We really like working together, but we also like working this way because it ensures that we accomplish the things that we're supposed to accomplish. So, yeah. So hopefully that helps. I don't know if it does.
Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. We don't need to talk.
We did a little race scheduled until 6 p.m. So I'm thinking like, should we like start cleaning up now, or like could we keep talking with President Roy if somebody wanted, if there were senators who wanted to do a more Q&A, like are there people who want to do that? It's like maybe go outside and keep talking, or what? I mean, people might start coming into class like maybe 10 minutes-ish before, so what do you think?
Let me go for 10 more minutes.
Let's do it.
They can stay in the hall or come listen.
True.
Yeah, like that. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So, well, I calibrated my remarks to the time. So, I don't have more to say on that topic.
Okay,
but
no, you're good. We're just gonna do a Q&A then for the next 10 minutes with senators. So,
all right.
Student senators, if you have a question, just raise your hand. Yeah, Azuchi.
So my question is, how would you handle a situation where a member of the team is trying to take on more than he's allocated? So he's like, he wants to do more than you've told him, or something like that.
Wants to do more than what the group agreed he would do? Well, that's a great question. I've not often had that problem. I've had the opposite problem when they want to do less than what they committed to. I think it's important to go back to this is where the group should, in my opinion, should work on the basis of shared goals and shared understandings, so common to everyone. And so if it feels like that someone's kind of taking over, and then there's another thing that is real important in the groups that I work with, and that is that we have constructive conflict, but that works best in an environment of high trust. Okay, constructive conflict doesn't work as well in an environment where people don't trust each other. So for example, I don't know if you've noticed this, but in relationships, in most relationships, at least in my experience, that are when you're getting to know each other, you know how everyone's really polite and people are cautious about saying too much. And then over the course of time in a relationship, there'll inevitably be something that comes up that is a point of conflict. And then have you ever had the experience where you work through the conflict, you get to the other side and you realize, man, I can get to the other side of this problem and I love working with this person and they love working with me. Like we got through it and I have more confidence and trust in the future because we got through that problem. The reason that usually works is because the people had developed trust over time. Okay, so what I'm going to say about constructive conflict applies to the issue of trust, or assumes a level of trust. Let me say it that way. So, but if you've got somebody that is seeming to take over and dominate, and that's not the shared understanding of what the group suggests, I think the best thing is to try to have a one-on-one conversation, if that's your perception, and to say, hey, I'm perceiving that I thought this was shared. It seems like we committed to it when we set the shared goal. It seemed like we had delegated responsibility for different people to do different things. And when you did this, it seemed like you were doing something that this person was supposed to do, for example. So you try to be real specific. And this doesn't seem to be what we agreed to. So the first thing then I would do is ask, what's your understanding of what we agreed to? Did we both agree to these things? And even asking that question, and this is where I think it's really important to ask a question rather than make a declaration or a condemnation. Is it your understanding that this was our shared goal? Once in a while, sometimes you realize, oh, I misunderstood it. But very often that conversation is going to help that other person to understand, oh, okay, I guess I'm stepping on some toes, and that's not a bad thing. But it requires a willingness to use what I have referred to as truth and grace. I think the scriptures refer to it too. I know the scriptures refer to it, is that, we know that Jesus came to earth full of grace and truth. So both things, be honest and direct, but be gracious that your understanding, might not be correct. It also might be that a person made a mistake and you need to be fast and forgiving and then say, let's try to work together in a better way going forward. And how can we do that? So, but eventually all groups, if they're going to be highly effective, need to have worked through constructive conflicts constructively. So, but not all, most groups don't. Most groups kind of fall apart and people go their separate ways, or people get mad and, check out. You know how you can just say, well, forget it. If this is the way it's going to go, I'm just going to sit here, and, that kind of thing. But that's not ideal, and certainly it's not going to help you achieve your goals or make anyone feel real great about it when you're in the middle of it. So great question, though.
Got sort of a general one.
Yeah.
Do you have any amazing insights for our project for the 5K? Things that we've maybe overlooked?
Yeah, I love that you're trying to think about something that will benefit the campus long term. That's really good. And yet, also, I love that you're wrestling with the tension of we're in a weird situation, COVID, and there might be some more immediate needs that students have right now that perhaps the resource could be used to help. I think both are legitimate. Right now, strategically, we're trying to still do long-term things like plan the Commons Union, but here's an example. But we were with some donors just last week, talking about this, and they said, well, how has COVID changed the design? And what we had talked about that, but one of the things we realized was that we didn't want to try to, this is a project, the current Commons has been there for 55 years. So we don't want the current or the future design to be sort of influenced by something that was hopefully a year or two event. And so we've tried hard to keep that. However, that said, this has really changed dining in university settings. So the self-serve mode, most people are thinking that's probably a thing of the past in all food service venues. And so there has been some attention to details around design to facilitate a healthy way of serving. So what I would say is I think the tension that you're talking about is a pretty productive one, and it's a good one. What I would strongly encourage you to do, though, is make sure that you keep asking questions about the facts of what's happening or what's possible or what the constraints are, so that you don't get so far down the road with a project and realize that, for example, painting the paths. I mean, I can imagine everyone gets really excited about that, and then just as about you're about to paint it, and you realize that actually if you paint it, the ice could be terrible under those circumstances, and then either you do it and people get hurt, or you don't. You pile the paint and then you're bummed out that you can't do it. So I think always be pressing to ask more questions about what don't you know and how can this work, and especially early, because you can change course early if you've asked a lot of hard questions and a lot of good questions. Much harder to. No one wants to change when you bought the paint and you're getting ready to paint. So so those would be some things. And I would say listen to the wisdom of people that have been here a while, and realize too that your fresh eyes also help. So, you know, those are both. Thanks, you guys. Always happy to come. So good to be with you.
I have a request. Can I take a picture of us as a group with President Lloyd? Just stay where you are.
Oh, okay. Yep.
But while I'm doing that, yeah, no, I got it. Okay, everyone just smile.
Yeah. How will you know I'm smiling? I didn't hear what you
I
said.
said, you're free to head out.
Oh.
Feel free to stick around for our announcements that Emmanuel is now gonna tell us.
I'll listen to the announcements.
Yep. Oh, okay. All right. Well, thank you again for taking time to meet with us today. We're very grateful. Now, moving on to the announcement. So first on this office hours cleaning schedule. So I've created an office hours cleaning schedule, and how that looks like is like this. So yeah, every week we have like 3 senators and 2 cabinet members on it. So for this week, we have Jessica, Theo, and Brandon, along with Emmanuel and myself and AJ. So just feel free to stay over at the end of the meeting so we talk about how clean the office will look like. And next is there's town hall meeting tomorrow. So I believe we all said we're going to bring 2 or more friends to the town hall tomorrow. So please feel free to reach out to Amari latest by maybe tomorrow morning so we know how that looks like. And also, we changed the deadline for bids and proposals. So instead of, you know how you used to send me your bids and proposals by Friday afternoon, now you have to make sure you get them to me early by Thursday noon. Or Thursday 4 p.m.?
Yes.
Thursday 4 p.m., sorry. So yeah, make sure you get that to me, along with your, how do you call it? Your PowerPoint presentation items. So yeah, we discussed it, yep. And yeah, and as we're going now, there's like a spray bottle and rag. Feel free to grab it if you're close to it, and just sanitize the table you sat on, and yep, and along with the desk, and yeah.
Will you table my proposal until next week?
Oh, yes. Can I get a second to table Isaac's proposal to next week? Okay, yes.
All right, so yep, table to next week, and yeah, so I think here's it.
I'm guessing people are going to go to dinner together afterwards. We want to just send out an email about them.
Yeah, I could do that, and even talk about it as dinner if you want to talk about it. Yes, dear.
Did we decide what we were gonna propose to Sarah Bishop?
AJ oversees that, right? So,
sorry, I do need to be able to know that we're by November 1st. So, which is before our next meeting. Our next meeting is after November 1st. Okay, I will.
Yep. All right. So we just get a closing prayer from Bria, and we're good. Team leader Kunis.
All right. Would you guys please bow your head with me? Heavenly Father, as we come to the end of our time together, we thank you for what we've discussed here today. May the matters that we've discussed serve as a catalyst to move us forward and to advance and see growth in all areas of our lives and our community. Thank you for this productive Monday, and just please bless us with health and efficiency as we continue into this next week. We pray this in Jesus' name, amen.